Now, before we get started, I want to remind you that it really helps the channel if you subscribe. And if you like, you can also support my work on Patreon. The links are down below in the description. Now, let's answer the question that I have posed in the title of this video. Do you really need to know how to read music? You may have read about famous musicians who claim that they don't know how to read music. They even say it with a bit of pride in their voice, as if to say, I am such a naturally gifted musician, I don't need to read music. I just hear it in my head and play it. I still think that there are some musicians who claim that they don't know how to read music, but in reality, they know more than they're letting on. I can't tell you who these musicians might be, but I think there's some of them out there. In reality, the ability to read music varies with each individual musician. There are those who don't read music at all, and those who are proficient sight readers. In other words, a sight reader, that's a musician who could look at a piece of sheet music and play it straight away. This was something I was trained to do in my classical training. I was even given sheet music for pieces that I'd never heard a recording of them, and I was instructed to play them strictly from the printed music. And I became pretty good at it. Now, a session musician, that is, a musician who does a lot of studio work, playing on recordings, must of necessity be able to read music. In my experience as a session musician, I was usually given a lead sheet, which is just the melody written on the treble clef and so on with the chords, sometimes just a chord chart. And occasionally I would be given a written out part, and so I needed to be able to read it. Session players in Nashville often would hear a song and write down the chords as they heard them using the Nashville numbering system. Now that's a special skill gained by years of careful listening, practice, and a basic knowledge of music theory and how chords work together. So you have musicians who are very proficient in reading music, but on the other end of the spectrum, there are excellent jazz musicians who can't read a note and can't even read a chord chart, but they have certainly developed tremendous skill in playing by ear through years and years of practice. Now, I believe that every musician should aspire to be a good music reader. Knowing how to read music does offer you several advantages. You'll be able to learn new songs more quickly through a combination of listening and reading the music. And you'll be working a lot of times from lead sheets, and so you can play a song in several different ways, but the sheet music and hearing it helps you learn it that much more quickly. And if you get to the point where you can write music down, then if you get a musical idea, if you're wanting to write a song, you can actually write down your idea, or at least write down the chords, and this will help you to remember it. Now, of course, you can also record it on your cell phone and so on. So nevertheless, it's still helpful to know how to read music. Now, obviously, it requires practice. It requires hard work. However, a lot of what you do in playing popular music will not require a high level of reading skill. Most of the time, you'll be using lead sheets or simple chord charts. If you understand basic music theory, how chords relate to one another, you'll be able to play, and play very well, even if all you know are the notes on the treble clef as they relate to the keyboard. And if you know how to translate those chord symbols into notes on the keyboard. Basically, you'll do well to learn how to play chords from a lead sheet or a chord chart. This comes in really handy, by the way, if you're playing as part of a rhythm section in a band, playing with piano, drums, bass, and so on. Here's the bottom line about music reading. If you want to play classical music, and that is a worthy pursuit, you really need to learn how to read music properly, and that will require a lot of work. However, if you want to play popular music, that is basically anything besides classical, then you'll be fine if you learn how to read the treble clef and how to translate chord symbols into notes on the keyboard. So I hope this has been helpful for you and encouraging. Not all of you I know want to be classical pianists. I started out as a classically trained pianist, however you want to pronounce it. And I learned a lot of songs, or I should say a lot of classical pieces by reading the sheet music. But these days I play a lot more worship songs and popular music. And so I'm often reading from lead sheets and most of the time just chord charts. And so I've learned how to play by ear as well as read music. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. You can support my work on Patreon. I will leave the links below. I look forward to speaking to you in the next one.